Any seated shape, any shape really that feels it offers you some ease. And let's just let our body settle in here. Maybe let your breath slow down a little bit. Really think about the ways that you can tweak and adjust your positioning so that you're more at ease. In this little village, there's a master painter, and she has just taken on a brand new apprentice. An apprentice that has come to her to learn, to experience, and to grow, but it has also come in with a tremendous amount of natural talent. Give ourselves 60 more seconds here. As you settle in for these last moments, just think about how you can utilize your breath to be more at ease. Eventually, when it feels appropriate, we can let the eyes open. And as the eyes open, let's pull the feet together so that we can feel a little pressure on the bottoms of the feet. And then just bring that plantar fascial tissue together with a little hand engagement. And as the that medial edge, so the big toe edge of the feet, get closer and closer together, note how that impacts the abductor musculature in the hips. And then think about keeping that medial line engaged and together and just start to relax into the abductor musculature. Feel this butterflying into space, butterflying of the hips into openness. And then release the hand pressure, but try to keep the engagement. So sometimes that means we have to add a little downward force towards the bottoms of the feet. And let's just take our hands out to the tops of the knees here. And we're just going to start to do some small little circles. So a little manual movement of the femurs, really. And you're thinking about how working on this distal head of the femur is impacting the proximal head of the femur in the hip socket. And so we don't have a ton of range of movement here. We're working with a big, long, and robust bone. But just think about how you can move that through what capacity for movement you have. And then we'll reverse the direction of that movement. You may find you have significantly more or significantly less movement in this direction, or you may find it's roughly similar. All of that is just giving us feedback of what's going on around the hip capsule, within the hip capsule. Give ourselves maybe just a breath or two more to find any last bits of capacity to move and engage here. And then we'll relax. Let's take our left foot closest to our body and our right foot in front. I'm not mirroring in this particular instance. And let the hands glide from kind of the anterior hip crease down to a point where the geometry of your arms feels relatively comfortable in a roughly straight position. You might have a little bit of an elbow bend. You may find that your torso geometry and your arm geometry just make the positioning vastly different. But wherever we feel roughly straight, and let's turn towards I'm going to just turn towards one direction. Since I'm not mirroring on the legs, we'll just start in one direction and work our way to the other. Keep a little bit of downward force into your hands so that maybe you even feel some of this lateral engagement on the side body, torso space. And then we'll relax back to neutral. And we'll, again, maintain that arm pressure and turn our way to the second side. Gentle downward pressure from the hands, thinking about how that engages kind of this anterior sheath of musculature as long as that lateral chain, as well as that lateral chain. And we'll come back to neutral. Let's switch the foot positioning. Once again, let the hands slide out until you feel that point where you're relatively comfortable with roughly straight arms. And we'll turn to the first side, keeping that downward pressure intact. And we'll turn back to neutral. You can relax the arms, especially if they need a break from that downward pressure. And then re-engage that, and we'll turn to the second side. Really thinking about the downward pressure in the hands and how that impacts your capacity for creating space. And then we'll come back to neutral. Let's extend our legs straight out in front of us. And remember here that you can tweak and adjust the bend of the knees to provide the best hamstring space. And we'll just work our way forward into a traditional seated fold. Are kind of two levers for expansion here. The primary lever for expansion, the one that we most often think about, is torso tilt and how that torso tilt impacts the engagement of the posterior chain. The less thought about, less applied aspect of linked here is what's going on with the anterior hip crease. And so you could think about pulling that hip crease back. It works the posterior chain. It generally works a little bit differently, a little bit less hamstring, a little bit more high calf insertion. But think about those two levers of expansion, the tilt of the torso, as well as the retraction of the anterior hip crease. And then think about settling. And we're going to give ourselves 60 seconds here, so a little bit longer fold. Take one last big, full, deep inhale and feel the impact of the lung expansion. And then as you release the breath, think about how you can utilize that impact to elongate the shape. And then we'll bring ourselves back up into a staff and bring the bottoms of the feet together once again. Clasping either the toe mounds, the ankles, the shins, or maybe the knees, we're going to start to work our way forward into a little butterfly to fold. As you get into the depth of your fold, again, we're going to play with kind of the alternate lever of expansion. And that is going to be kind of the positioning of the legs and the bottom of the foot connection. So if you have the hands clasped over the toe mounds, you can just kind of play with where you put your pressure onto the toe mound, onto the big toe mound side or the pinky toe mound side of the shape. The hands are a little bit higher on the legs. You can actually manipulate the leg angle to impact the bottom of the foot capacity to connect and adjust. And every little shift here, and you'll note that I'm kind of working with shifts up. Generally, we're thinking about shifts down into greater hip expansion. Here we're playing kind of in a different way. We're working into that proximal femoral head joint space by adjusting the leg angle or the foot pressure angle to get the maximum benefit. And let's give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring ourselves back up towards a neutral spinal alignment. And we're going to give some options here. So the first option is a right leg extension and a remaining state on that left side. The second option is going to be to reverse the left leg positioning so that it tucks behind you and activates this quad sheath. We're headed into a single leg forward fold. So two options, we can either be in a figure four, heading straight down that leg, or we can be in a tucked leg position, heading down that leg. Putting the left quad under load is definitely going to take out some more slack from the system and cause a much more challenging forward fold. If you choose to do your figure four, you actually get a little bit more slack into the system and it allows you to have a much deeper forward fold. Choose the path that's best for you and let's just settle in. We're only going to be here for about 30 more seconds. Take a big, full inhale breath. Think about this as your last impact, and then exhale and release completely into any available space before we bring ourselves back up into a vertical spine. Extend both legs, and we'll just follow that into a little fold. So as this apprentice shows up, he's rather confident, rather assured. And this master recognizes this, and she kind of understands the path necessary almost immediately upon meeting him. When you're right, we'll walk ourselves back up into a staff. And then we have choice on side two, right? We can go with that figure four, creates a little bit more slack in the system, or we can take some slack out of the system by putting the quad under load, whichever gives you the best feel. Let's settle into that. And so she decides that one of the primary things she's going to do is kind of temper this confidence, maybe this overconfidence in his skill. She's going to have him start painting with very old, very dull, very boring watercolors. And so she presents him with the set. And he is displeased. One more big, full inhale breath. Deep, full exhale breath, settling fully and completely into any last bit of space. Then we'll walk ourselves up, extend our right leg one last time, and let's follow that forward into what will be the last seated forward fold of practice, I do believe. Really settle in here to the space you've created. Really think about how you can utilize that space to craft and create even more space. Let's give ourselves 60 more seconds here. Pulls right. Let's take a big, full, powerful inhale. And from that inhale, we'll exhale and completely release. And we'll bring ourselves up to a nice vertical staff from staff. Let's grab our blankets or towels. And from shelf fold, let's take a hot dog fold and a hot dog fold. So we end up with two roughly hot dog shaped structures. We'll just set those to the side and we're going to head straight onto our backs. As you've found your way out of that long forward folding sequence, think about exactly how your body is connecting with your mat or floor. How both sides of the ilium are sitting. And then we are going to take blanket, hot dog folded, and fold that in half so that we end up with roughly kind of a block approximation. That block approximation is going to go underneath our left foot. So knees are bent at your kind of general level of comfort in the depth of the knee bend. And then extend your right leg straight down the mat. Now, pay particular attention to the back side of the ilium here and how the top of the ilium, bottom of the sacrum are kind of aligned and neutrally balanced. We want to maintain that as we allow the left knee to fall out wide. The left foot or ankle stays propped on top of that blanket section or that blanket block construction. The right leg is going to move slightly towards the bottom of the left foot. So a little bit more in line with this medial line right down the middle of the body. And then your right toes are going to maintain their skyward, ceilingward direction. Arms can fall towards cactus or T. The primary focus here is not the depth of the openness in the left hip. It is the neutrality across that belt line, ilium, sacral region. So really try to keep that equivalency of weight distribution and then soften into more and more openness on this left leg. So we're using the block blanket construction as kind of a fulcrum point to craft more external rotation in the hip. But we want to do it without losing our balance. And so the lessons that this master starts offering this apprentice all take place with this very muted, very dull, someone describe as boring set of watercolors. And the paintings come out very muted, very dull, some would say very boring. And the way that they look. Because of that, the apprentice hates everything that he's creating. He hates the lessons. And he hates the lessons not because they're not good, but because the output is not up to his standards. And yet the lessons continue. And as the lessons continue, the work of the apprentice starts to improve. Through the techniques that are being transmitted in these lessons, the vividness, not of colors, but of life, starts to be more deeply expressed in each painting. Recheck in with the balance across the sacral region, that whole hip girdle, the weight distribution, the balanced, general balance of ease across the hip girdle, across the ilium, across the sacrum. And let's give ourselves 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, let's bring our left knee back up so that the bottom of the foot can rest on that block blanket creation. And then shift your awareness up to your shoulder girdle. We want to maintain this neutrality of weight distribution across the shoulder girdle. And we're going to reach with our right hand towards our left shin knee and make a connection. As you're reaching with the left or with the right hand towards that left leg, the right shoulder is going to want to peel away and we're going to want to rotate. Don't allow that to happen. So we're going to continue to take this left knee towards our right shoulder until we get the weight distribution, the energy distribution back to equivalent on the right and left side. This is almost certainly going to load the hip capsule, the hip flexor on the left side. And that's more or less what we're targeting. We're just attempting to do that without distorting the shoulder stability. Thinking about pulling the left knee towards the right shoulder without disrupting neutral. Last 40 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll release that left foot down. You can move the block blanket structure out of the way and just extend your left leg down to mirror the right. And as the leg extends, now just feel into the asymmetry we've created. How the left hip is sitting in the hip girdle, how the right hip is sitting in the hip girdle, where the weight is attempting to flow. And then eventually we'll reconnect with our block-like prop. We'll put that over on the right side, bend the right knee, and slide that little structure underneath our right foot. Get to a place where that feels comfortable first. And then from that level of comfort, we'll allow the right knee to fall out wide. The ankle or right foot are held and supported by that block-like structure we've created. We move the left leg a little bit more towards the medial line, and we keep that left foot energized and pointed straight up. Once we've set kind of the rudimentary positioning, we start to fine-tuning around the hip girdle. We think about the ilium sitting evenly, the weight distribution on the left and right side of the body sitting evenly, the sacrum sitting neutrally. And we settle our way into a breath that allows for the continual expansion of external rotation, now with the right hip, without ever losing the structural balance that we've created at the hip girdle. And we breathe sweetly and fully into this. Think about that soft finish on each breath that allows for expansion without tension. Has 60 seconds on this second side. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring that right knee back up. So it points towards the ceiling. Keep the left leg where it is. Think about the shoulder girdle and how we balance there, how we're anchored there. Draw the right knee towards the left hand towards the right knee. Don't allow the left shoulder to peel away from the floor. Bring that right knee towards the left shoulder without impacting the balance of the shoulder girdle. Load that right hip flexor and then just breathe into that space. Time passes, and the apprentice's paintings become more and more vibrant. Again, not through color, but through the life that they capture, through the shading, through the detailing. And they begin to become something that the apprentice is proud of. When it feels like it is the appropriate time, when you feel balanced left to right, we can release that right leg so that it travels down. You can move that prop out of the way, travels down and mirrors the left. And now observe, re-examine how the hips sit, how the shoulders sit, how your body responds to this neutrality beneath it. Let's take our prop structure. We'll bring our knees into a bent position. Place the prop between the knees at whatever depth feels best for you. So include as many folds as is appropriate. And then an optional choice here. You can use a blanket underneath the feet to give a little bit of elevation, a little bit of angle change to the sacrum, but you don't need to do that. We're going to heel toe our feet out to the width of the mat and let the knees fall in towards one another for a little reset of the internal rotation of the hips. Day after day, the apprentice's paintings get better and better and better. And the apprentice starts dreaming about what these paintings would look like in full, bright, vivid color. How they would be more beautiful, more immaculate than anything he's ever created. And so he asks this master painter if he can get access to the better, brighter watercolors. And she shakes her head and she says, "No, you're not quite ready for that." And so, trying not to be visibly disappointed, he goes back to painting in these muted, pale colors. But he goes back with the idea that not ready yet means that there is a time that he will be. And he's seen incredible and tremendous progress in his painting abilities. And so he continues the pursuit. Last 60 seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, we can remove that prop from between the knees. Bring the knees out to the width of the ankles and walk the ankles back in line to the width of the hips. Your choice if you want to have those props handy. We're going to start just a little dynamic sway of the knees, a little exploration for all of the hip work that we've offered. Thinking about as you're moving where you might feel new space or new restriction. And the knees. Guide this path, this arc of movement. The next time that the knees travel to the left, let's let them settle there for a little static. Hold a little final twist. Side one. Certain point on a certain painting. This master painter walks by the apprentice's work, and she sees the delicateness of the brush strokes, creating the depth, the engagement, the liveliness, the vividness that she hoped to inspire. And so that night, she invites the apprentice over for a dinner and presents him with the most vivid, whole, and impactful watercolor set that he's ever seen. She says, I want you to understand that as you take these tools, they hold great power. And tomorrow we're going to take a journey to a place where I would like you to paint. It's the most beautiful place I have seen. I want you to create the most beautiful painting you can create. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And then let the knees fall over to the second side, the right side. And we'll settle and we'll breathe here. Breathing into this final few moments of this twist in a way where you are supported. And then bringing your knees back to neutral. And as the knees come back to neutral, really asking yourself if there's any other movements, any other shifts, any other adjustments, tweaks that could be beneficial for you prior to Shavasana. And if there is anything that would be advantageous, let's offer that to our body now. And if we have everything that we need, if we're ready for some stillness, let's settle our way into that stillness now. Let's prepare ourselves for our version of Shavasana this morning. And so the apprentice and this master painter set up in this forested spot, surrounded by these beautiful flowering trees. And the apprentice begins to paint with these new techniques and these brand new, vivid, stunningly beautiful colors. And he begins to paint a true masterpiece with each brushstroke. Finding your complete version of stillness when you're ready. young apprentice artist creates a truly beautiful work. And this master artist comes over and is appreciating the final project. She claps her hands in like a static celebration. And as she does that, the sky opens up and it starts raining. And as each raindrop hits this perfect painting, paint begins to run. And the master painter quickly runs over and she grabs another canvas. And the apprentice expects she's going to put it over the top, but she slides it underneath. And as the paint runs off of this beautiful painting that this apprentice has just created, this stunning masterpiece, the paper essentially loses all color. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. Canvas. Into our wrists and our ankles, elbows and knees, shoulders and hips, neck and head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of our body moves. And we'll utilize that movement to transition back into a seated shape. All the while, this master is just catching the colors that are falling off on this blank canvas. And then moving that canvas around as the raindrops wash this watercolor away. And this apprentice is devastated. He's created this truly masterful piece of art, this thing that he was deeply connected and proud of for maybe the first time ever. He recognizes that this is what he wanted to create his whole life, and it's gone instantaneously. Let our eyes close and bring our hands together, heart center. And the master painter holds up this blank canvas that she had been collecting these drops on. And somehow, as the drops had run off the apprentice's painting, she had created this beautiful work, this flourishing garden. And it was more stunning than the painting that this apprentice had just created. Sometimes destruction can be a new beginning when we look at it through the right lens. See how that can impact your next 7 days. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you. Quick reminder, nothing tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling. Stephanie, thanks for the hip request today. Love the heck out of you guys. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you next week to recharge. Love you. Bye.